proud to be a woman.
Girls and women are
powerful,
beauty,
badass, feminine,
passion,
equality,
power, professional,
diligence,
advocates for change.
Welcome to She Plus, the female empowerment podcast that tells the extraordinary stories of everyday humans. I'm your host, Elise Dean. On today's episode, we sat down with Crystal Marie Stewart. She's a theater actress currently working towards her MFA in acting from the University of Iowa. The world of theater is a very familiar place to me, especially musical theater. Growing up, my sister was very involved in the local theater community in our hometown. From Aladdin to Alice in Wonderland, I've seen quite a few children musical theater productions in my day. I may or may not have been in a few myself. So naturally, Crystal and I had a lot to talk about because she was also involved in musical theater as a kid.
So when I was a really little kid, maybe like 5 or 6, my church at the time, my parents' church, used to have a children's choir, and they would do a musical or two every year. And they were like really cheesy and like hashtag inspirational or whatever, but like I was always in them and I really enjoyed it. But I don't think I ever like had a concept of it being a job until later. So when I guess the older I got, like the more quote unquote like serious or professional I got. Then when I went to college and I majored in theater because I knew I needed to have a degree, and I couldn't think of any other things that I could do as a living that required me to have a degree specifically in those things. So I was like, I'll just get my degree in like what I like still mentally thinking like, oh, I'll get another job and like do theater at night like everyone I know.
So she took her passion of being on stage to college, where she majored in theater. But during the second semester of her junior year, Crystal wasn't cast in any school productions.
So I auditioned for The Merchant of Venice at Warehouse Theater, which Jace Tromsness directed. And I got cast in that, and then I kept auditioning there, and I also got involved with the teaching artist program there that Anne Tromsness ran at the time. And then I kept working, and I kept getting cast in things, and I kept working, and eventually I had to quit my day job because I had too many gigs. And so after a while, when I was like, okay, I think I can do this for a living, but I think there are like some gaps in my training and my experience, I auditioned for grad schools at URTA. And so now I'm in graduate school getting my MFA in acting at the University of Iowa. So that's like the trajectory. It was like always something that I liked and something that I was interested in, but I don't think I had a concept of like really being able to do it for a living until I was much older.
I won't be the first to say it, and certainly not the last, but pursuing your passion is terrifying, because a lot of times your passion may not always be a suitable career path. Take me, for example. I got a master's degree in journalism, which is awesome, and I want to be a professional podcaster. Hell, I am a professional podcaster, but the field of podcasting wasn't really established until 2014 when Serial put audio storytelling on the map. And podcasting still has a long way to go. So it's cool and fun to pursue your passion, but it may not always be the most reliable or the most lucrative. Especially when it's known that your passion is a competitive field that isn't always the most stable. In Crystal's own words, if she could love a career that was more stable, then hell yeah, she would go for it. But she loves theater and acting, so she started the difficult process of setting professional boundaries, even when things got overwhelming.
My main issue is that I have always been a person who needed to have a lot of backup plans. Like I have relatively intense anxiety. And so for a long time, like I always had a full-time job. And then it got to the point where I wasn't very good at having like boundaries within my full-time job where I could have like, this is my job, but it's not going to be my career. You know what I mean? And so like there came to be a point where I was doing a tour with the Warehouse Theater. And I was also working at a store, which honestly was one of the best like non-theater jobs I've ever had. Like I had insurance and I had vacation time, but like they had said that they were going to be flexible, and so I would give them my schedule of when I was working, and they'd be like, "Oh, great, you have like a 4-hour break in here, so you could totally drive back from Asheville in between shows and work a shift and then go back." Like it just got to this like crazy time where I basically had like 4 full-time jobs, and my boss at the time like sat me down and was like, "I'm not going to watch you work to yourself to death. Like I can't keep scheduling you to the point that I am now if you are going to keep working at that other job, because like you have to be able to like rest to be a person." And so I quit my full-time job, and then I was like panicked. So I was like, "Oh, I'll get a random," like I worked at like Barnes and Noble like early mornings, and then I was like, "I don't need this." You know what I mean? Like I just got to a point where like when I knew that I could do it by itself was when like I literally didn't have time to have another job.
Pre-grad school, Crystal was hustling her ass off, but she soon realized that she needed to prioritize her resources and time.
It does get scary every now and then, just because like you have this I grew up in a very scarcity mindset where I was like hoarding like resources and time, just because I was like, what if like I don't have it now, you know? And so what's been helpful for me is like switching into an abundance mentality of like thinking about all the times when I thought that I was going to be completely boned and it wasn't going to work out, that there was always something.
Personally, I think especially in today's world, it's important to have an abundance mentality. To think that there's always something, even when it feels like there's nothing. But it wasn't the only thing that Crystal had to face as she blossomed professionally as an actress. Earlier, Crystal shared that she has anxiety. For a while, Crystal thought she had a solid grasp on that anxiety. But as she continued her career, she started to realize that this was not the case.
I thought that I had a pretty healthy like grasp on my anxiety, and like I was really well put together. And then when I got to grad school, like half of my first meetings were about my mental health. I think for me, when I was younger, and I don't even mean like a kid, like when I was like in my late teens and early 20s, so much of my psyche was built around managing my own anxiety, and also like presenting a version of myself that was very put together and confident, that it became really difficult for me to play and to take criticism, because like it would be like, okay, I'm armored up, everything is so great. And then someone would be like, that thing you did that you practiced at home that you thought was going to be perfect was not immediately brilliant. It would like make me crumble on the inside. Like it was really hard. I also think that for a while I thought of acting as a way to be someone other than myself, which felt less overwhelming than being myself. But I think also that sometimes would keep me from being as authentic as I wanted to be and as genuine on stage.
Criticism is hard. I struggled with it for a long time, and I still do at times. And just from my sister's experience, I know that criticism in the theatrical space can be especially difficult. But for Crystal, grad school has allowed her to reshape that anxiety into a source of energy that motivates her.
So what's been fun about graduate school, and also awful, but mostly fun, is that as I've been wrestling with a lot of the things that I'm afraid of about myself, it's been easier to bring more of myself to a character and it not feel like I have to hide behind a character. So I think for me, the place that my anxiety is most difficult is in scheduling, because I have to work really hard not to frantically overbook because I'm so afraid of not having anything. Like being able to like be zen and confident enough to know that the work will come and I'll be where I need to be. And also like getting on that audition horse, because I feel like by the time I get to a performance, I'm getting to the point now where I'm confident enough to play and to expand and to allow myself to be present. But auditions are really hard for me not to click back into this like paralysis of fear. I think because in auditions you have that like brief moment where you just are yourself, and then you have to very quickly snap into a character. That can be very scary for me and like be a panic point. So that's kind of one of the things I'm currently wrestling with. But I think what's been helpful is like recontextualizing that feeling of anxiety in my body, that like tingly feeling, as like a source of energy instead of a source of like, oh, I have to shut down around this. I think now that I'm being able to start feeling like that, it's like been feeling more electric and more fun. But for a while, like, people would be like, yeah, just like try stuff. Like, who cares if you don't know what you're doing? And I'd be like, that's not fun. But like now, like some of my best work and some of my most interesting work is when I don't know exactly what's going on and it's like kind of scary. But at first, unknowingly, and then now I'm more conscious of it, it was like hindering my work in a way I didn't understand. But also, like, acting has always in some ways been an escapist kind of thing, where like that character doesn't have my anxieties and my hangups and my traumas. They have their own. And sometimes it's fun to like be able to like be another person for a while.
When I interviewed Crystal earlier this year, she still had a little over a year left in her graduate program. She'll graduate in May 2021. But she's already got an idea of where she wants to go and what she wants to do once she's done.
My ideal would be to live in New York, mostly because I really want to do film and television, but I also want to do theater. And I think that's the best option to do both things. I watched X-Men First Class, and I was watching the behind the scenes like reel, and there was this thing where January Jones was like, yeah, you know, it's so cool to have a day job that like I love and like it's so different, and then come in here and do X-Men. And then I realized that what she was talking about as her day job was being on the television show Mad Men, which I just thought was really cool. So it would be ideal. Like, I would love to continue to do teaching artist work in New York. It would be great to book a series regular role on a television show, preferably a nerd show like The Witcher or something super fun. And then also be able to do some really interesting theater. Because I think for me, there are just so many facets to my personality when I'm interested in that I can't foresee only wanting to do one kind of thing. So yeah, ideally I just would be able to book enough things and enough gigs and like audition for Hamilton, fingers crossed. And then also have the flexibility to like travel around and work with friends who live in other places. Because I think for me, I love having the flexibility, but I also want to have the stability and the certainty that like there will be work. You know what I mean? So I think it would just be fun to be based out of New York. I have a lot of really good friends who live out of there. And also I think I've been afraid to go to New York like my whole life, because in my brain, like for a long time, it was like, you're going to go to New York and like either you do Broadway or you starve, you know? And so I think I want to like wrestle that bear and like see what happens.
Coming up after the break, Crystal speaks to the importance of including diverse voices and stories in film and television.
This message is brought to you by She Plus Podcast.
It's no secret that I love a good t-shirt with a motivational saying, especially when it empowers women. No, seriously, you should see my closet. And Nobody Jones Boutique really added to my collection with their trendy and unique clothing styles. Nobody Jones offers a new spin on fashion for women's clothing, all at affordable prices too. Check out my post on Instagram to see what I bought from Nobody Jones. Shop now at nobodyjones.la. Welcome back. On this episode of She Plus, we're talking with Crystal Marie Stewart about her career as an actress on stage. A few days before my interview with Crystal, the 77th annual Golden Globe ceremony took place. For those that may get the multiple award ceremonies mixed up like I do sometimes, the Golden Globe Awards currently recognize achievements in 25 different categories. 14 in motion picture, aka movies, both American film and international film, and 11 in television. There were quite a few glaring criticisms to come out of the 2020 ceremonies, which Crystal and I discussed at length. One of which was the lack of female representation in nominations.
Golden Globes specifically, it's not, the problem with the Golden Globes, at least right now, is not that there are not women getting the opportunities to make work. And I feel like that was very true for a while, and it's still not equitable by any means. But I feel like there are a lot of women who made amazing work last year. Like Fleabag exists, Killing Eve exists. Greta Gerwig directed 2 amazing movies like this past year. Like there's so many great. When They See Us didn't get nominated for Golden Globes. Like it's things like that where it's like there are, for me right now, what's frustrating with certain nominating bodies or governing bodies or whatever is seeing like heinously mediocre work by particular white dudes being praised and valued when there is tons of stellar, amazing work being done by women and by people of color that was not nominated. So that was frustrating for me about the Golden Globes in general, because I actually think, while again, it is not perfect or equitable and we have a long way to go, I do see a lot of amazing work being done by women and people of color in all different kinds of spheres. I often just feel like the politics of nominations and of like who gets seen and who doesn't get seen is really frustrating to me. And so like if there is a next wave, which I don't necessarily know if we're at the next wave yet, because again, I still don't think that the opportunities are equitable across the board with regards to, especially if you take into account like generations of inequality up till now. I do think that if people are not even willing to engage with the media that is being put out that is diverse, then what's the point of even offering the diversity? You know what I mean? Like for me, it's like, and I don't think all award shows do this, but like it is just baffling to me that there were no women nominated for the Golden Globes. And there are so many like relatively universally lauded pieces of media by women that are out right now, that are happening, that people are watching and seeing. Like the quality of television in general just continues to go up and up and up.
So for reference, let's take a quick look at the nominations for Best Director of a Motion Picture. The nominations were Bong Joon-ho of Parasite, Sam Mendes of 1917, Todd Phillips of Joker, Martin Scorsese of The Irishman, and Quentin Tarantino of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That list included 0 women or female-identifying people, and that was in a year where Little Women, Hustlers, and A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood were all directed by women. Even Issa Rae called attention to the one-sidedness of the list when she announced the nominations.
For achievement in directing, the director's branch of the Academy nominates The Irishman, Martin Scorsese. Joker, Todd Phillips. 1917, Sam Mendes. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino. And Parasite, Bong Joon-ho.
Nice.
I did it. Thank you so much.
You did it.
Congratulations to those men.
But it's not just women who were snubbed. No women of color were represented in the TV categories either. In the words of an article written by Refinery29, it's an egregious oversight in a year when Euphoria and Watchmen dominated the cultural conversation.
It's just frustrating to know that like there are people who won't get engaged with a piece of media specifically because it was directed by a woman or it's about Black stuff or whatever, even though they watched the same movie over and over again, starring some bald-headed white dude with muscles, and like don't find that formulaic or restricting. I think sometimes people like to be like, are you just saying you don't want to watch movies about white people? And it's like, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think everyone should have the opportunity to tell their stories and be inventive and creative. It just frustrates me when I feel like people recycle the same things over and over again and won't even try anything new.
A little over 5 years ago, the hashtag #OscarsSoWhite movement shifted the landscape in Hollywood. Now there's a public reckoning for more diverse representation in art. But Crystal says this work has already existed for quite some time, and people are now just realizing its value.
Brown and Black and queer and female people who are getting more work right now did exactly what they were told to do 20 years ago. And they were like, just go make your own shit then. And so they did, and it was really good. And so now big networks are snatching it up and making it, because that's what's marketable. You know what I mean? And so I feel like it's like, some of that is like, unless you just legitimately don't want brown or Black or queer or people or women to exist, then like what they're doing is they went and they made their own content, like people like Issa Rae and like Key and Peele and Quinta Brunson. There are just so many people who like went and they made their own thing like you told them to, and it was really good. And so now people gave them money to make more things that more people will watch because that's what's marketable. And right now, like bigotry and mediocrity are not marketable. People are not going to go see it. Like, and then it's like, that's just how it goes. Like, and so for me, it's like, it's not about a certain demographic. People always talk about forced diversity. People always have to be like, excuse me, you're leaving people out in order to make people do things. That's always how it goes. But also I feel like people cry forced diversity when there's a Black person in something. And it's like, but Black people exist. Black people have always existed. I don't think it counts as like quote unquote SJW shit if like women exist. Like, and unfortunately our media narrative up to this point has perpetuated an idea of the world that is not factual, which is that like women only exist as damsels and like they don't have thoughts and like Black people aren't really a thing, and like that's not real. Like people are gay sometimes, Black people exist, women exist and are capable of multitudes. And I feel like what's happening right now in media more accurately reflects the world in general.
In our interview, Crystal told me that there's a YouTube channel that will show you every single line said by a person of color in a show or film. And to close out this episode, I'm just going to let a few of these clips roll so that you get an idea. For 500 Days of Summer, 4 actors of color.
Okay. Tom, Mr. Vance would like to see you in his office.
We've been stuck on this for an hour.
Son, you're gonna have to exit the vehicle.
I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
For Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, 2 actors of color.
Ron, is that your owl?
Another goal for Slytherin! They lead Gryffindor 90-30. Harry Potter has caught the snitch! Gryffindor wins!
And finally, for Into the Woods, no one. No actors of color. That's all for this episode of She Plus. If you haven't heard yet, we have a brand new website that I'm so excited about. You can go online and find all of our episodes and more. Every single clip that I referenced in this episode, you can find in the show notes section. Head over to shepluspodcast.com for more. And we're also now live on YouTube. Check out our fresh content every week on our channel, which you can also find on our website. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.